Welcome, Leo, to your Leo August 2021 reading and forecast. Hi, I'm Nigel Saint James, for those of you who are stopping by for the first time, and for the subscribers, much love and affection to you always. I love to see you for our monthly tarot readings here. In fact, I saw one of you Leo people, it was only just the other day, I think, for a one-on-one private reading, which the details of which you can see in the box below. But have a look at the website in particular, because that's got a lot of information on astrology and clairvoyance, which I think you'll find interesting. But now we're going to take 5 cards, because haven't you found that 5 cards are all that we need, because each one of them is jam-packed full of information which is necessary to forewarn you for what is in store for the month ahead. And this time it's for August, so let's have a look and see what they have to say. There is the Hermit. Okay, Hermit guy. Well, there's a couple coming out there. There's the Knight of Discs. There is the Four of Wands. Really quite interesting imagery and quite esoteric, so I might use my pen here to point out some of the esoteric imagery that I find interesting. What else might there be? That was the Ten of Cups. Did I mention that? Anyway, you'll see it again in just a second. And let's have a look at this one here. This is finally the Princess of Wands. Outstanding, and how applicable to you in particular. A lot of Leo around that. But anyway, without me giving anything away, come and sit down here next to me. We'll have a good close look at the imagery on these cards together while I do the reading for you. There now, can you see? Let me just move over here a bit. There, give you more room. Right, I'm going to look at this Princess of Wands first, because she just looks like a very interesting card for me. Well, she is for me the princess of the shining flame, the rose of the palace of fire. And this has got Leo written all over it. I think that Virgo might be important to you during this time. I also think that Cancer is going to be important to you as well. Well, she has a winged tiger's head as her crest, the tiger being a symbol of willpower, fiery sensuality, and courage. Now, esoterically, she is the earthy part of fire, and earth and fire are neutral, and they don't cause any problem for each other. But this earthy part of fire, I think, shows the potent and irresistible fuel that is compelled to burn, the pristine and living flame of the soul. She is pictured as one with the mighty trunk of what I assume is the Ace of Wands. She is standing before a tabernacle or an altar, I suppose. And what this suggests, well, it's also got incense burning in it, and it's ornamented with a ram's horns and blossoming rose, for she celebrates the rites of spring and is the rose at the heart of the palace of flame. Now, if there were a major arcana card to accompany her, it would be the card of strength, sometimes called lust. And this gives her the characteristics of vitality, vigor, and daring. She is. Now, these court cards can, of course, be both male and female, but I'll refer to her as a female for the obvious reason. And what was my train of thought? These thoughts here, linking her with that card of strength, give her daring and strength and vitality. She is all-consuming, insatiable, passionate, enthusiastic, and aspiring. And these are qualities that you will have during this time. Now, there is another quality that she has during this period, which I think you will share, and that is that she has seductive appeal. The force of her character imposes the impression of beauty upon the beholder. The fires of her spirit are incarnated into her flesh. This is the creative impulse that sets things in motion and shows spontaneous combustion, the living flame of will. Now she brings, I think, for you, a lust for life, a passionate avowal, sudden desires, I think, and a desire for adventure. And there is also the expressive pushing forward of her will, with her power to will. Creative and spontaneous inclinations are set in motion. Now, as a person, she possesses a lot of sexual charisma, and I have to tell you again, you will have a lot of sexual charisma during this period. She is ardent and ablaze, brilliant, enthusiastic, daring and impassioned. She fans the flames of desire and attracts a lot of sexual attention. Yet her spontaneous ignition can be childlike and sometimes fickle, provoking passion, but without offering commitment. Do you know what I mean? So during this time you will be confident, daring, exciting, perhaps nonconformist, freedom-loving and ambitious. People are going to love your character and energy. Now, I have to say about her, though, she can also be vengeful and temperamental. Sometimes she can be shallow or cruel, so be aware of this. But this card represents this in particular, and it is the conquering of old fears and patterns of thought. You've brought them to the surface and conquered them. Although I think you have learned lessons the hard way, haven't you? What is the next step in your life? Find it fearlessly. And say to yourself, my greatest strength is, and fill in the blank. And say this also, as I accept my fear, it is transformed into love. Well, we may as well go up the column and have a quick look at the Knight of Discs. Hello, Knight of Discs. Well, this is something which has got to say here. Well, the first thing I'll say here is that, look at him. First of all, he doesn't wear any helmet, so he's not someone who is prepared for battle. He is also has as his emblem the antlers of the ram that are coming up here, and lots of fertility, lots of nature, lots of abundance and crops and things around him, and of course his very bright future, which this period is speaking of for you. Now, he is the lord of the wild and fertile land. Now, I think this also is applying to you, and I think that Virgo again is going to be important to you. Now, why am I getting Virgo with respect to him? Well, the first two decans, you know how each sign has 3 decans, 0 to 10 degrees, 10 to 20, and 20 to 30. Well, the first 2 decans are ruled by the Sun and Venus, respectively. Well, the Sun is required for the growth of all of these crops, isn't it? And Venus only complements him here. Now, esoterically, he is fire as a king, or as a knight, and he's in earth, and again, no difficulty with that. Fire and earth are fine here. Now, this could be a man of the land, but it says that you will be patient during this period, or should be patient, even though you're going to have a lot of energy with you. Nevertheless, in respect of a particular project, be patient and be a hard worker. You will be very clever during this period. Now, this horse that he rides is not a battle horse. It's not a horse which is used for racing or anything like that. It's what's known as a shire horse. So it's one which is used for drawing things through in the old days, drawing carts in the agricultural setting. So he's not into battle, but his feet are firmly planted on the ground. I think that he's associated with Renaissance times, and there's very much the talk of prudence here. That is, of you being prudent, particularly when it comes to things to do with money, with work, and in earning a living or taking care of children or looking after a home. Now, what he is also saying is that this is a time when you should work instinctively, as he does, to get things done, and use work ethic because results will come over the longer term. Now, he's not an intellectual, this person. Now, I'm certainly not saying that you are not an intellectual, but I think that this is a time to not over-intellectualize things, but rather to use instinct, use hard work, just go through the process, just for this time. There's plenty of time to jazz things up later on throughout the year. But I will say this, though, that I don't think that this character has much of an interest in anything outside of work, so make sure you don't, become a workaholic, I suppose, but in any event, that you make sure that you have balance in your life. But now is the time for you to set your abilities to work in service of some kind. Now, the tasks before you are large and demand the use of all of your powers, but if you make the effort, the harvest will reward you richly. Are there tasks you would like to avoid in your life? Remember, whenever things seem to be too much trouble for you, concentrate on the positive results of your actions for you and for others. Your internal learning and growing process is the most important outcome, more important than that which you achieve by your actions. And say this to yourself, that with every task that comes my way comes also the energy needed to accomplish it. Well, now, where shall we go? Incidentally, these are the back of the cards. I just thought you'd be interested to have a look at those. Now, what do we have here? What is this here, incidentally? It's the Four of Wands. Oh, the Four of Wands in the middle, with the Knight and the Princess beside it. Well, that colours the meaning of it, and yes, there's the Hermit there. Well, this has got a particular meaning for it then. This is the Lord of Completion. Now, astrologically, this is Venus ruling the third decan of Aries, I'd say here. And if there were to be a major arcana card that would go near it, I'd say it would be which it would relate to, that would be that of the Empress. Now, the four wands are formed of compasses. That's these things here. Do you remember high school geometry? Did you do that? And squares. The eagle-headed compass, that's this one down here, and a square. They've been complemented by its perfect reflection in the form of a compass and square topped by this bee symbolism, I think. This association of the compass and square with the male and female, or the square and the circle, is actually quite ancient. In Chinese mythology, the first sovereigns were called Fu Xi and Nuwa, the only survivors of a great flood. See, the great flood is a story all throughout religious tradition from around the world. And they were depicted as being entwined with Fu Xi, the male, holding the carpenter's square, being this thing here, and Nuwa holding the compass, taking the measure of the universe at the founding of the new world and the dawning of a new age. These things, of course, are required for engineering and construction drawings, for rebuilding, for creating something new. Now, in the Bible, in the New Testament, I suppose there would be Joseph and Mary. They symbolize a perfect pairing and the duality of the universe, the Alpha and Omega, and the interaction between the Yang, male, and Yin, female, that underlies cosmic unity. The square represents the earth, and the compass represents heaven. And that mythology is a precursor to the Masons, the Masonic depiction of the compass and square. Well, Venus ruling the third decan of Aries. Well, Venus rules two signs, doesn't it? It rules Taurus and it rules Libra. But because here I've got the symbol of the bee in the card, I'm taking this thing as being flighting up into the air. And so Taurus is earth and Libra is air. So I'm going to assign Venus to the air sign of Libra. Now, for Venus to get into the third decan of Aries, it needs to travel 180 degrees away to the opposite side of the zodiac, where Venus in Aries will be in detriment. So you would think its ability for producing beauty, love, harmony, and relationship, and just feeling good would be hosed down. But in this case, I don't think that is what's happening. I'm not getting that at all because of the placement of these cards here. Rather, I think what happens is that the feminine planet of Venus, and if we were to personify her for a moment, and remembering that Aries is ruled by Mars, that fiery, aggressive character, male, I think that the feminine Venus exercises her womanly charms upon the male Mars, and I think you ladies would know how to use your femininity to subdue a male. I'm sure you do. And so what we have here then is we don't have discord, but rather we have harmony. And what you might find is that you might find that there is an emotional idea, that is Venus, to move in new directions, which is Aries. So there could be the desire to go there with one part of you, or a desire to go here in another part of you. Or there could be a desire for you to stay where you are, even though another part of you wants to move in that direction or in that direction, metaphorically. So, but don't be surprised if you find yourself with that conundrum. But because everything is so positive around here, what you decide to do is going to turn out well. I do think that there is also some sort of opposites attract activity going on here, or energy going around here. You might find, for example, that you look at somebody with new eyes that you had never regarded before. Or you might find that there's some aspect in your workplace, or some activity or social pursuit that you've never really given any thought to or given any regard to, that you say to yourself, do you know, I think I'm going to give this a go. And you find that you enjoy it. And similarly, you might find that somebody who has never had much of an interest in you or provided much attention to you before suddenly starts to do so. That's what can happen here. But this can also, I think, where it is placed, represent something that needs to be completed despite your desire to move on to new things. Now, this may relate to work, or to new relationships, or to a new dynamic within an existing relationship. It can also, as I say, relate to the self, where one aspect of you wants to move around. So certainly something in your life needs to be completed completed, and there is a new stage of the journey to go ahead. Something beautiful is making its way into your relationships. Now, you may first notice it as established conditions are called into question and discussed openly. Clarifying the old is a prerequisite for the new oneness, a new beginning. Are you prepared to accept your partner as she or he is, in spite of your differences? What areas are in urgent need of clarification or resolution? And if there is some tension between you and somebody else, now is a good time to clarify and resolve the interaction and complete the old. Because remember, and say this to yourself, completing the old frees me for the new. Well, shall we have a look at the Ten of Cups? Why not? Let's see what there is here. Oh, this looks like a lovely painting. Let's see what it is. The Ten of Cups. Well, it's called satiety. That just means fullness, as far as I'm aware. Well, in fact, I know that to be the case. Well, astrologically, this is Mars ruling the last decan of Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac's end point. Now, the dates of that decan span the very last days of winter, and they come before the first day of spring, obviously. And this is what's known as the double Mars, because you have Mars in the last decan of Pisces, and the next sign in the revolution in spring is that of Aries, which is ruled by Mars, but Mars also rules the first decan of Aries, so that's why it's called a double Mars. And that came about in the old Chaldean planet sequence that begins again with Mars at the spring equinox. Now, as a 10, the card is very much associated with the earth, with your standard of living, and it's in the creative, spiritual world of cups or of water. Now, the cups in this card are shaped like opium poppy pods, and they're stacked, as you can see, in a pyramid of 10. That's there. And water gushes and spills, overflowing the unstable cups. Now, the reason why I say they're unstable is because the 10, that is an unstable energy. The energy is about to devolve, to turn into the Suit of Swords. 10s can be very unstable. And behind the stack of cups, and this is interesting, this is what they call a griffin. Now, a griffin is a mythological creature that had the body and the legs, at least the back legs, and the back of a lion, but the front and the head were that of an eagle, and sometimes you had the eagle's legs as the front legs of the lion. And what a griffin did is that it was always about protecting a treasure. And I notice that it has a poppy in its mouth as well. And he's perched on the top step of a step pyramid of 10 steps here. Now, in Mesopotamia in the old days, and that would today be modern-day Iraq, and bits of Syria, these pyramids that were kind of shaped in those 10 stepped ways, they were called ziggurats, and they often featured a shrine or temple at the top, and that was called the Hill of Heaven, or the Mountain of the Gods. And the opium poppy, which the griffin is holding here, that's a symbol of Morpheus, the god of sleep and dreaming. Now, the element of water in the number 10 has reached its pinnacle and can go no further and thus is due for disruption. And Mars in the decan, well, Mars is a jarring force when combined with the ethereal and spiritual nature of Pisces, a sign which is, well, you will have noticed, is given to dreaming and escapism. Do you have Pisces friends? You'll know what I mean. And Mars comes here and strikes against the seeming perfection. It is all very dreamy and pleasant for a time, as a definite, ultimate success has been reached, but it's not necessarily stable. There is, however, great satisfaction and fulfillment radiating here. This is talking about a happy family unit, dreams becoming a reality, emotional stability. Someone might be finding their dream home, you know. There is also a happiness here which may be a fleeting sort of a happiness, and I think that is to do with someone who might be, it's to do with buying probably consumer things. You might buy a new pair of shoes, or you might buy a new shirt, and say to yourself after a week, oh, gee, I'm an idiot. Why did I do that? You know, I don't like these things at all now. So what you do is you get something which will make you happy, but then you get it and you're bored and you move on. And in a relationship, it can relate to the loss of pleasure in what the relationship brings, and as therefore you either have to alter the dynamic of the relationship or move away from it. It's not as if you're not happy, but this satiety here means full. It means that something is full, and so you have to reconfigure things and make the space bigger to allow more emotion to come in. Otherwise, let things develop by themselves, because everything comes at the right moment. And say to yourself, life gives me all I need to be happy. Finally, let's have a look at the Hermit here. We'll spend a minute on him. He is coming through. He's Mercury. He has Mercury ruling Virgo and Mercury exalted here. And here is the Hermit coming down with the light of the sun in his lamp. The hellhound Cerberus behind him going down almost shamanistically. He looks like the magician Merlin, doesn't he? Well, I think this is about you going inward, completing the harvest again and resting in your center. You might become a mentor to somebody during this period. He is the prophet of the eternal, the magus of the voice of power. And you'll have a love of learning. It's almost as if within respect to something, there's some sort of illumination from within or divine inspiration. There's a wisdom here and a getting away from things also. I think you're becoming aware of something that you were previously in the dark about. And ask yourself, are there any unresolved situations or relationships that you need to tie off? Because we saw that also with this Four of Wands, don't we? But remember, you can be alone and say to yourself, because he often talks about aloneness, I can stop being alone whenever I want. That's the way it is for you this month. Well, splendid. I really enjoyed doing that, I must say. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I did providing it to you. As I say, I really do enjoy doing these monthly readings for you, so please drop me a note of appreciation on the channel and give my morale a bit of a boost, and keep that virtuous circle going around. I've got to say, it's always good to see you each month, and we're getting ready for the next month. Now, before the next month, though, just remember one thing, and that one thing is this, and it is that you are a legend. And I look forward to seeing you again next month. So until then, it's bye for now.